Okay. So when we took this inspiration, like Malak does, and we decided to put our pictures, I think we two had done it.
Yes.
So, so we thought it was good, so we decided to do it. But more importantly, I think for the morning session, we were a little unclear. We were like the three blind mice running around a little bit, and I think it helped when we got some of that clarity. So this time around, we will be highlighting the thrust areas along with the parameters and indicators that we feel are most helpful in guiding us towards sustainable eco-cities. The first slide primarily is, just by nature of the animal, it is sort of a laundry list of all of the items we think that need to be considered when you are thinking about a city. I'm going to refrain from going through every one of these. We found that one of the best reports on this was produced by Hewitt, and we've essentially copied those elements. So if you want to get into deeper details, much of it exists there. But this is here for your reference, just to sort of set a scope for our discussion. More importantly, what we did was dive deeper and try to think of the important short list within that is required for the sustainable part of that eco-city that we're talking about, and not just a city. So we shortlisted a few items over here. These 8 items is what we're doing a deep dive into. And essentially what we're now going to do is, every one of the team took time to figure out how we can measure these and recommend certain steps to achieve one of these elements within our eco-city. So one of our members is going to keep coming one by one and representing their area. So I request Mahesh to start. Sorry. Yeah. So Priya, you're up first.
Yeah, first pass.
I agree with So we started off talking about carrying capacity, and it really is a very broad topic, and in our context would essentially need to be quantified for every single thing in terms of waste, water, reliance on natural resources, all of that. So essentially, I'm just going to read this out again, but the maximum number of individuals that can be supported sustainably by a given environment is known as its carrying capacity. And what happens is a population can exceed the carrying capacity at times, but only for a short while, because after some point, you keep relying on these stored natural resources that you have that eventually run out. So even though we are not at that point yet where we can even talk about this in an informed manner, I thought that we should at least use a graph like this to sort of direct us in the right direction. So what this is saying is, as time goes along, we know that resources are depleting. This is mainly natural resources. And we are slowly getting to know more and more about the resources as we gather more and more information. So that's our data about resources that is depleting. And while our goal should technically be to reduce the demand on resources, we know that right now we're discussing this because we feel like we're almost at that point where our carrying capacity is getting jeopardized. So we need to get more efficient. That's what the central arrow is talking about. And the real way to sort of reduce the demand on resources is through, again, innovation. And this, in a way, has formed the basis of which, on which we'll be even going through every single indicator. So,
can I ask one question? What is this increase in data about?
Okay, so
What does this represent?
So this
Does it just mean resources don't increase like that?
No, so actually we only know more and more about the way we're. So a few years ago, it was actually not cool to use materials that had recycled content. Nobody was even measuring that. In fact, the more virgin the material, the more new it was, and it was being used all over the place. And then over time, as we realized the negative impact on the environment, we started saying, hey, we need to be developing these materials that had more recycled content, for example. So we went back and started doing collecting data, how we find how many forests, have been sort of destroyed, and then what should be timber, and therefore what should we do, and therefore how do we sort of find ways to compensate that. And that only happened gradually as we started collecting data. So this graph is basically saying that we learn more and more about it as we go. So on that note, I'm going to go to the next.
Could you go back to the slide and tell everybody what is on the x-axis? See, we've got one time on this axis, what about the other axis?
It basically is resources. Because there are different, so this one is talking about how we're depleting our resources over time. This is how we're getting to, as we become more intelligent even as a species, we're figuring out ways to track and manage and monitor and measure the way we use things. And this is the actual demand on resources in the world, in our cities. And when we try to be more efficient, this is what happens to the demand. And if we are really innovative and find ways to reduce our impact it could be by better technology, by interventions like this, and some of the strategies that we're now proposing, hopefully we can curtail it even more.
Is this demand because of increase in population of the city, or is it?
Yeah, growth, essentially. Growth. Yeah.
What can bring down is also fuel use of resources.
Yeah.
When you talk about the overall energy requirement of the ecosystem, other than the buildings, we feel the travel in the urban area, which is having a lot of impact on the nature. And we try to figure out from the available data, the overall travel time having cities of about 5 lakh population. That is the unit we are taking in Nayak data here. Each trip which we are doing is about 6 kilometers. I'm talking about each trip. It doesn't mean the total length of travel in a day. So there is 1% possible. And the average mode of transportation by public transportation, which is the mass transportation, is 50% today. And the shared, one minute, here, some mixing up. Average transportation on mass scale production, electricity, because we have that particular line on this. Is 30%, and on the shared and the personal is 40%. The one which is non-motorized is 10%. What we are trying to recommend for the ecosystem is 50% on the mass transportation and 10% on shared and personal motorized transportation and 40% on non-motorized transportation. And of course, there are a couple of suggestions how do you achieve this. One of the mass transportation is BRT and suburban trains, etc. And how do you also reduce the number of vehicles on the roads by introducing the higher taxation to the personalized vehicles and reworking on the road networking and traffic management and introducing the new technologies which are more cleaner and introducing the more parking charges. But that's all about our priority on the mobility. Any other questions?
Obviously, a smaller size and with less number of relative size, probably public transportation will be even less than cycling or people do more.
Yeah, we debated and we come to that suggestion. Yes, it can be much lesser than public transportation, more on cycle and walk, yes. That's quite possible.
Is it possible to increase carrying capacity by not increasing carbon footprint?
Not increasing.
Carbon footprint.
See, we are trying to encourage people to use non-motorized. Therefore, we are not increasing any carbon footprint.
Let's not talk something which is not possible. Let's be realistic.
Another thing which I talk about is introducing clean technology. In place of fossil fuels, the vehicles can be on electric or CNG.
That's one.
Yeah.
Does that increase carrying capacity?
If you are increasing
I am
the,
saying this because inflow of the migration is going to continue,
yeah,
whether you like it or you don't like it. So existing cities have to cater for
additional capacity.
So that is going to create pressure on resources, on
Yeah.
transportation, on power. Now, is it possible, is there any way of increasing carrying capacity without reducing carbon footprint, without increasing?
Without, obviously yes, that we are talking about mass transportation. There are multiple ways of mass transportation possible and thereby you will not increase the footprint, carbon footprint. So one of the solutions, everybody knows that very effectively metros introduce, of course it's for the larger population. The one which I have showed when in the station yesterday, that is another area which is much bigger than 150 passengers can go in one go. So that may not really increase
That's
the,
concerning only transportation.
yes.
Carrying capacity relates to all the parameters, all the resources. So transportation maybe mass transport is one, the electrical vehicles or hybrid vehicles could be another one. Promoting dedicated cycle tracks,
Yeah, that will,
shorter distances could be one. Having dedicated
when we are talking about the more people using the non-motorized like the cycle and walking, that we have to increase more cycle paths and walking paths.
But what about other resources?
I just wanted to say, it would differ perhaps for different resources, but what some of the studies that even we do show that at large you may not be able to reduce the carrying capacity, but you can reduce the carrying capacity per person or per square meter. So the intensity that you have may reduce. So as your city grows,
Yeah, we are
the
talking about
total-
necessary carrying capacity of number of people. Here. Carrying capacity, we are always talking about number of individuals a city can accommodate without exerting more pressure on the resources. That's what the carrying capacity.
right, so if today my carbon footprint in this city, for example, is 40 tons of carbon per year. If I implement correct measures, then even perhaps 3 years from now, it should still either stay 40 or reduce.
Suppose from 40,
Because the total number of people in the city may have already increased, which means the total carbon footprint would perhaps increase, but it's still per person. If we can restrict it, then I think that's.
you mean that by, if I am consuming 1 ton of carbon every year, if I reduce this to half, 500 kilos of carbon per ton, does that increase carrying capacity?
With the new technologies,
Now we have two challenges. One is of course reducing existing carbon footprint per person is one. But at the same time we have to increase carrying capacity because we have to accommodate more people without exerting stress on the resources. These are the two important challenges. And this is what we.
And therein lies the role of efficiency. So as your consumers grow in numbers, your efficiency has to keep growing with that. Because your resources are finite.
Your modal efficiency changes. The mode of travel probably changes. So, you know, in the good old days we used to have the trams, and we had the trolley buses, where you don't need tracks, you just need the line overs. Yeah. A lot of LRTS is happening, a lot of areas in the smaller towns in Europe, etc. have these systems. And what they're doing is actually clubbing in the second car and the third car along the way. So you start with one car which is a 40-50 people load, you put in the second car which is an additional 40-50, you put in a third car which is an additional 40-50. So that would probably answer your question.
That is the only transportation.
Fuel consumption will reduce.
No, that's only transportation.
But I'm talking about the
Carrying capacity is not decided only by efficient transportation.
That's only transportation.
So carrying capacity has two aspects. One is the size of the population and the number of people or in the ecosystem. And second is the consumption levels, how much per person.
Okay.
So you cannot increase carrying capacity unless you reduce the consumption or decrease the population or increase the resources. Increasing the resources, I think, is out of question. We don't have more than resources.
Well,
I don't know. How
if-
can we
if
increase
we-
the amount of
if
aluminium
we
when
reuse, recycle,
Yes.
treat.
It's renewable resources.
You are increasing efficiency of use of existing resources.
So, like Mahesh was saying,
still
sir,
we have a limited number?
like Mahesh was saying that with oncoming technologies helping us, it's probably possible.
If
Mostly,
has
just
adds
to carry
on-
forward what he said. Let's be very clear. The carrying capacity of our cities is exhausted. We have, it's more than carrying capacity, number of people to wear a house. That's why we have 60% people in Islam. It's very simple. And so that's one. Second thing is the buying capacity of people for tenants is reducing because the cost is going up. Affordability. That means we are now. Why now the people are when I need a 2-bedroom house, I'm compromising for a single bedroom house. Instead of having my house in closer to city where I can walk, cycle, take bus, I'm going outside the city because I can afford only outskirts of the city. That too instead of 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom house, which is not a good sign. Not a good sign. So that's one. So current capacity we are serious. There is no doubt more people are going to come in. There is no way additional resources will come in. I'm talking about environmental resources. So we have to increase the efficiency of use of existing resources, no doubt. All this is because all the whole cities we are talking about retrofitting cities. Now just
Not necessarily, it is for the new cities as well. And one more point let me tell you here. In any of these eco cities which we are about, we should not encourage people to get into a city unlimited. And if you look at, I am giving illustration of US which you may not accept.
how can you do that? Tell me.
Let me tell you, so US house, if it is a 2-bedroom house, if it is in Illinois state, the occupants can be only 4. If it is a single bedroom house, if their wife and husband living there expecting a child, they have to move into 2-bedroom house. It is enforced as a law. Similarly, you have any development area, they knew how many houses with so many bedrooms will be built, and they know the population, what they will live. Based on that, all the resources are developed, whether it is sewage, water, electricity, communication, etc. Similar way, we should not encourage people to enter into one particular city endlessly. If you are expecting you have to develop another eco-city, provide them opportunities for them to move.
We have an economist here.
Yeah.
He will tell us if we restrict inflow of people, the costs will go up and only it will be affordable to the rich. And we are just talking about people.
You are providing additional opportunities in the new ecosystem.
We're talking about decentralized, we're talking about many more smaller cities.
We are not spoken about new cities at all.
No, he's
No,
talking.
we are focusing on new cities. That's why exactly the teams made in the morning.
That means I have luxury of staying in Pune. Mahesh, you are coming later on.
Yeah.
It's your fault. Go to a smaller town and compromise on quality of life, compromise on resources, compromise on aspirations of the children.
How do you say that another town is going to be less than Pune?
A city doesn't develop overnight.
Of course it doesn't.
So it probably takes culture, it probably takes 40, 50 years of heritage, to develop the whole space.
I give you a classical example. I was involved as the representative of government of Japan on DMIC project.
Yeah.
Delhi Mumbai Industry Corridor. One of the major recommendation was Haryana government decided to give free space, almost free space. And major industrialization, Japanese industry came to Nimrana and they are bleeding because they don't get people to work. The Uttaranchal gave lot of fiscal incentives and 10 years tax holidays for pharma industries. Pharma industry went there, they are bleeding. Same is happening in Gujarat also. There are no people. So why you want people to live where there are no resources?
How do you say there is no resources? Let me tell you one thing. It is our mindset. We are endlessly allowing people wherever they want to move in. If you want to get on the aeroplane, if the capacity is 280 seats, would you like to be there as the 81st person passenger? Will there be anybody allowed in there? Similar concept we have to introduce.
I would rather propose have adequate number of aeroplanes and then restrict.
That's exactly what I'm saying. We are going to have adequate number of ecosystems.
See, I think there are two levels of constraint.
I was expecting.
So can I make one point? Please. So, I think there are two levels of constraints also. One are the softer constraints and one are the hard constraints. So softer constraints could be like water and stuff like that. The resources, which can be reduced to efficiency or, which can be recycled and we can put. But then there are some hard constraints, like the infrastructure, the carrying capacity of the roads, the carrying capacity of the transportation system. After even in
why would you build 200-meter wide roads outside the city in expanding areas and give 5 FSI 5?
No. So let me complete. What I'm trying to say is that once you reach the hard constraints, let them be X, Y, Z, but there would be some infrastructure where we cannot change it. FSI also, you just cannot keep on, if you are saying it's a continuous process, you cannot continuously keep on increasing the FSI also, right? And you cannot keep on creating the wider roads and wider networks. So once you hit that, I think that the question arises not how do you accommodate more, then why are people migrating? Why do people coming in? And what is that needs to be done to limit it to an extent that is feasible?
Tell me the ideas.
We are
why
at
are people migrating?
We are
at
least
that. Till then stop people migrating.
It's not about stopping, but it's about starting thinking. It's about start thinking about it.
I mean that's fine.
It's not even idealist.
I
think it's being pragmatic.
But we have to at least accommodate one generation. New city will take one generation to develop.
So why don't you think in parallel both the things? Why is it there are only 4 metro cities or 5 metro cities or the 5 centers where all the employment in India of 1.5 or 1.4 billion people is still concentrated?
Why are you staying in Bombay? Why don't you go to Nagpur?
That's exactly what I am asking. That's the question that we need to answer.
I moved out of Bombay to go to another place. Which is
one doubt I have is, in the Indian context, should we consider the carrying capacity of a city as something fixed?
There has to be a finite.
Can it be maxed?
I think in any context, carrying capacity is always finite.
Always?
Finite.
Finite, yes.
But you can't.
But, I mean, how do we find?
Sir, now all carrying capacity is decided by whom? What parameters? Carriage width of road.
Yeah.
Is this the carrying capacity deciding factor? Because we have ridiculously mismanaged our transportation. When narrowed down the road, city developed and then roads the buildings were constructed, and then we are talking about carrying capacity because can roads decide carrying capacity?
And that's what I want to know. What is the carrying capacity? Delhi, for example, 50 years back had a population which was 110 probably. So today it has got that much more. So do we consider that no, there is that finite thing, so now that finite level is reached or something like that.
But then the carrying capacity cannot be restricted to a city limit because Delhi draws its resources from a region. which is much wider and bigger than its core city area. So a carrying capacity is always in relationship
Should not
with the
consider that
region.
as a solution.
Sorry?
Isn't that a solution?
Solution to?
Even it's a solution to enhance the carrying capacity of a city.
So that's what we are heading in India. Our consumption.
Okay.
Anyway, thanks for your contribution. We've looked at carrying capacity as a composite index, not as a service-specific index. It is a multi-objective assessment and analysis which has to be done for a given area and a given set of resources. So if you are looking at a set of resources on which city living is possible, the resources or factors, then for a particular area, an optimal population is its carrying capacity. The moment the population increases beyond it, two things need to happen. Either it expands or it creates satellites. This is internationally, historically proven. So right now what is happening, unfortunately, is they are growing in size rather than they being satellites, which are equally livable or which are equally socio-culturally attractive for the new migrants to enter. What he is suggesting probably, and was also in one of the pictures, is that you don't say that this is the best compartment, so everybody needs to come to this compartment. Either you add another dibba, then your optimality figure goes up. That's the way to increase your carrying capacity. If you are accepting that it's finite, then it's finite because of the area you've chosen to agree on as the limits of that area. Now, optimality can also be looked at in terms of what I would call indivisibilities. For example, if Agra was to grow and Taj Mahal is its icon, then you cannot create another satellite Agra icon. What you need to do is to have another city which has an equally attractive icon which will attract. So this is the way in which finance will move. So if you ask investors, for instance, they would say that if, now take the example of Mumbai and Navi Mumbai. It's still Mumbai. So those people who stay in Mumbai don't feel like, you don't tell them, why are you staying, I want to stay in Mumbai. Because now Navi Mumbai is just as attractive as the Zuni Mumbai. It's got access if and when it wants, etc. So carrying capacity is a composite concept. It can also be service specific. So you have several figures. So for example, what is the maximum road length or a maximum trip it can accommodate in a given area? That will decide the carrying capacity limited to that objective, and so on, for water, for this, for that. And then you will get a composite index which will suggest that given these facts, for example, you may increase your carrying capacity for transportation with very modern hi-fi, whatever, double it, but other capacities are going to remain the same. Therefore, you have to have a composite index, and so it's a multi-objective assessment and analysis which leads to your final carrying capacity. This is also true in business. There is something known as the optimal size of a business of a particular type. When, for instance, Ratan starts expanding beyond the point, even if he adds more and more intelligent people like Priya to it, it is unmanageable. It creates, and she moves out and creates her own company. This is the optimality problem and scale problem. Now, in case of cities, this is precisely what needs to happen. So what has happened all over the world in terms of enterprises and industries, which is the model which we're talking about when we talk about carrying capacity and resources. So there is always an inverse relationship between resources and demand. That inverse relationship continues to increase. And therefore, these indivisibilities. You cannot divide, for instance, you can't divide Ratan into 3 Ratans. So either you have to create 3 Ratans, or you have to make him so super intelligent and so super efficient, which is what you're talking about. Keep on increasing these efficiencies so that whoever comes in can be accommodated in that city. That's not possible. So because there are certain things which are not divisible, certain things which are divisible and they are what can be called modular. You can keep adding modules and you will increase your capacity. There are some which, for instance, water. We are very fortunate when we discussed water here. If you go to Nagar, you can have any number of brilliant technologies added from everywhere, but your final limiting threshold capacity will be determined by water. If it cannot support more than X, if it simply doesn't have that many liters of water, the population of Nagar, which is very close to Pune, will be finding, and that's why these cities are not expanding. Please try to look at the medium cities of India. They are actually reducing in size. So there are villages which are evacuating. There are smaller class B, class C towns which are also shrinking. And there are certain, the rate of
I don't know
growth.
one example where cities are shrinking.
Let me, when an economist says it's shrinking, it's the rate of growth. So when you say the rate of growth is increasing, rate of growth is constant, rate of growth is falling. They are growing but at a falling rate of growth.
The growth of in terms of what?
Population, numbers. The numbers, let us say if you check 4 cities of 4 classes, then you will find across, let's say, Maharashtra. The highest or the increasing rate of growth will be in the metros. The nearly constant rate of growth, still growing, will be the medium cities. And the lowest rate of growth, it's still growth, will be the smaller towns, C-class towns. Now why is this happening? This is a phenomenon that needs to be understood. Villages are evacuating and the rate of growth of villages is either constant or sometimes falling in many cases. Okay, so from a falling rate of growth or a negative rate of growth, you are going to slightly higher and higher and higher rates of growth. Now this is reality, historical reality. Therefore what one is trying to say is, instead of the whole thing accumulating at the end in the metro like New York, Tokyo or Mumbai, you have in anticipation planned satellite cities well in advance before, so that you create the cultural center and the icons in order to make people feel that whether he is staying in Navi Mumbai or Old Mumbai, he is still staying in a lovely metro. Lovely in the sense, the metro of his dream. This is the only, what I would call, I won't say only, this is one of the ways in which we can look at carrying capacity. Otherwise we hit a wall. Because there are technically many of these variables or factors which we want to increase in terms of capacity. It's possible. But there are some absolute limits. And water is clearly one of them. I can't think of any, look at Rajasthan and any of these cities there. They are not expanding at the same rate. Water has become an absolute threshold limiting factor. So there are the limiting factors in different locations. In Mumbai it's area, not water. Because we are getting water from 250 kilometers from Midvaitana. And we have removed that limitation by going farther and farther to fetch our drinking water supplies. Pune water is not an issue. Pune issues are different. So what is the limiting factor and what is the comparative advantage? So every location, every city has a comparative advantage. Pune, for instance, has a comparative advantage in water. Our water capacity or water carrying capacity is huge. But our transportation area, the shape of this, for instance, we cannot expand anymore on the south, there's a barrier. We can't expand anymore to the west because there's a barrier. There are only 2 directions in which you can. So there are physical limitations and barriers and thresholds which will decide how the carrying capacity needs to be increased. And once that limit is reached, it's fine. And then, so merely to say that increasing efficiencies in energy, in reducing carbon footprints and doing this and doing that will increase the gross or the basic carrying capacity of the city is not acceptable, at least in economics.
Do you mean that we must put compulsion not to migrate?
No, there's no compulsion, it is already happening. See,
so,
it happens.
No, on one. Now already Baramati has come up as a satellite town. Khandala, Bargaon, that side is coming as a satellite town. Charkand has come up as a satellite town. That hasn't reduced rate of migration comparatively what would have happened. Might have.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. The rates of growth are increasing, reducing. So without those satellite towns, the rate of growth in Pune would have been
we have to see.
That's the point.
How do we increase carrying capacity, because migration is bound to happen in spite of satellite cities coming up. Migration is happening in Bombay. New Bombay has come. Mirabai has come. Now Kalyan Domini is coming up. In spite of Bombay, there's a pressure. In spite of Bombay, the MMRDA, luckily they had a huge land bank, and how the money was created, government didn't put in money. It was land bank gave the money for development. They made and so many business PPP business ventures created money. Now that's not all the cities have got that luxury like Bombay. Now we have to see till we come up with satellite towns which are livable not in a physical sense of building, all kinds of aspirations of people, desires and aspirations of people, culture, education, everything is there. Baramati, in spite of being Sharad Pawar there, best college of education, people don't want to go there. No teachers go there.
Precisely.
In spite of that, 100% employment to students they get because of these contracts. Industry, 100% placement is there. In spite of that, people don't go there.
But Rajendra, you are answering your own question. Let me explain how.
No.
In case of Baramati, for instance, giving them additional transportation facilities, building more houses, having better and more efficient street lights, doesn't increase its carrying capacity, because those are not the only factors which determine the carrying capacity.
So, satellite town in immediate future is not going to resolve problems of migration in the city. So we have to
that's an accepted.
We have to increase carrying capacity of existing towns at least to accommodate one generation of population. One generation, say about 25.
Starting from when to when? One generation is a continuum.
From day zero, whatever that zero of intervention is there.
Okay, so what you're talking about is if you have the plan decided this year, 2014-15.
Plan for 20 years.
Then plan for 20 years, then you're planning for. Then you are saying that all other capacities except the threshold limitations in ecology will have to be increased for a projected rate of population growth. This is precisely what master planning does. The only problem is the rates of growth of in-migration have always far exceeded the planned rate of growth that you put into your master plans. And that is, they go faster. As a consequence of which each 5 years or each 3 years you find that those rates are going up and you are only catching up and trying your best to catch up. So this catch-up game has to continue and will continue. There is no other option. It has stopped happening only in countries where the in-migration, for instance in Europe or in Australia, where the in-migration rates are so low that the natural rate of growth of the population decides, and therefore they become livable cities, and therefore they don't increase their footprints, and therefore they are within their ecological limits which have been set by nature. So allow this whole curve to finish till the population stabilization and transmigration doesn't stop. This catch-up game will simply have to continue. If you look at it in the broadest perspective, there is no option.
So there is no solution.
No, I'm not saying there is no solution.
When there is no option, that
hang on. The solution only helps you to improve your catch-up game. So there is a line. So the goalpost is moving. Remember that. If you had a stable, static goalpost, you could reach it. What is happening is you plan and the goalpost keeps moving faster than your footballer. As a consequence, however well you plan, however much efficiency you put in, it doesn't reach. And this gap is the result, is the congestion, is the non-desirable things that are happening. What you can do is only tend towards getting to the completing or reducing the gap. You can almost never completely eliminate the gap till the entire demographic transition has taken place, which will take another 50 years as far as India is concerned, at least.
What I feel, forget Bombay. Bombay is a very complex situation. And we can talk about Bombay. But cities like, say, Pune, Aurangabad, Nashik, Nagpur, Sangli, Kolhapur, Jalna, take it. These cities, I do not feel their carrying capacity is exhausted. We can probably accommodate twice the number of people. I
agree with you. You are talking about Jalna. For 4 days there is no water. Amarnath they get water from 137 kilometers.
We can find solution.
No, that means you are going farther and farther away and getting somebody else's water. That's precisely what is happening. That is called the ecological limitation. The ecological limitation is precisely that. That when your water footprint, which is a major obstacle, for instance, take Jalna, take Aurangabad, any of these cities in middle Maharashtra or middle MP that you're talking about, they will start having, because they have the clout, let's take Bhopal, let's take Patna, they have the clout, they can bring water from 200 kilometers, 250 kilometers from both sides. Let's take Hyderabad, you take from Krishna as well as Godavari. Now, if you are saying that your ecological limitation can be solved by simply importing waters 250 this side. So 500 kilometers is your water.
Anyway, this debate is
not terminable.
Limited time.
It's terminal illness.
Still look at this.
Yeah, another point, I'm only talking about the mobility. I'm not talking about total capacity. Number one. Number two, by allowing people to keep coming to a place like Bombay, the people who purchase a flat at 40 lakhs rupees 10 years have to pay 1 crore today. It is quite injustice for the people to pay so much of money. And the service is quite expensive and the products are quite expensive for people to buy. And exactly what Pune, when talking about Bombay and look at Pune. Pune, a lot of industries have migrated over to lessen the condition. So that there is a possibility of people migrating other place from Pune itself. How many industries have gone from here to Ogale? Yeah.
Because the cost of land where Bajaj was there in Pune was so high, it was better to use the land for some other purpose.
That's what that's exactly.
The game is very different.
But exactly the point, land is still vacant.
No, but that is exactly the point. I mean, there's more money in sitting on that land than in trying to create.
So our objective is not only look at the existing cities, also create new eco cities which are more comfortable, more sensible to live with better quality of life. Okay, one of my colleagues continue on the water.
Thank you.
What did you discuss?
So, okay, I think I'll take energy, to give some energy to everybody so that energy basically will cover the public street lighting and the water supply assistance, and this is basically the amenities provided by the cities. And we need why there is a yellow street light basically to reduce the accident rates and crime. And there is a norm, and I believe most of you might aware that the Indian standard IS 1944 and there is a National Lighting Code 2010 that clearly specify the illumination requirement. That means we know what is the illumination level to be maintained for various class of roads A1, A2, B1, B2 like that. So here basically the number I am putting is particulars. This is for class A1 road where you have a very fast and it's a busy road. Okay, so we know what is the illumination level to be maintained, and traditionally it is done by using the sodium vapor lamps of say 250 watt fittings. But now you have technology available. Paranjpye has mentioned in the introductory lecture yesterday. LEDs, the various and coming to the implementation methods. LEDs emerging solution to get that lux level. But here as of today it's a very expensive compared to other mode of illumination. But certainly in days to come, maybe in another couple of years or so, it is going to be attractive. Then since a few years people are using the existing energy saving measures and the energy savers, where you control the voltage level and some other power factor control like that. You have timers, you have dimming. Dimming basically at 11 p.m. till midnight, you don't need that 30 lux illumination. The traffic has been still reduced. Not cities like Mumbai, but if we talk about tier 2 cities, tier 3 cities, so we can eventually reduce that 30 lux to say 18 lux or 16 lux. So that will give us additional saving of say 20 to 25%. So this is all about lighting. The next is the pumping, water pumping. Basically, let me go to the water side, then I'll come back to the pumping because both are linked. See, water basically the per liter per capita per day as per WHO, and there is also BIS 1172 for city having population of 1 lakh and more. This is the number they have mentioned, 150. Sorry?
125 is BIS.
150 to 200, that's the BIS. And WHO says 150. So if you go by the number, say 150, that I believe it's a good number, and most of the cities are achieving that numbers. So we suggest various methods how to achieve in context of that eco-cities what we are talking about. Reduction of primary abstraction from source at the rate of 40%. How it is possible? Because reuse, recycle and reduce the usage of water. Basically the secondary treatment of sewage, which I think is not done in most of the cities. So if we can treat the sewage and it is possible to reduce the primary water consumption by say 40%. Of course it will add on cost, but the business model can be defined. It could be PPP or some other models. Then if the water, we have a metered water supply. So if it is done, people will be more conscious. Because once I know I am using so much and they say money I am paying for it, so I will certainly reduce. Like we have built the electricity. The more the units we consume, the more we are paying. So this already I have covered, reuse, recycle, recover. Minimization of water losses. I think we have already discussed 40%. That's the number we are talking about. So what we advocate here, there are leak detection methods available, but due to some issues, it is not being taken up by the cities or the city planners or the civic bodies. So there is a urgent need to look at it. Then the conventional use of surface. Basically, we are saying there should be a balance of surface and groundwater usage. Then you have rainwater harvesting, restoration and utilization of traditional water systems, water bodies, maintaining the natural drainage systems functional and intact. I think this is a major issue. We are trying to close the natural water bodies. That's why there are flooding that happens. We experience in Mumbai and other cities also, Surat. Then city level water level management. These are few suggestions proposed by our team members to achieve this number, and if we recycle, we can bring down this per capita consumption to 100 or even less. That's basically the message what we are saying. Then coming to the pumping, as basically if you are targeting a 40% reduction in the water usage, so it is directly impacting on the input power consumption by the pumps. That's direct saving. And alternatively, you have solutions like auditing, doing a detailed audit of the pumping stations. So we identify which pumps are inefficient or the parallel operation of pumps. Sometimes what happens, a single pump operation deliver a good efficiency of 80%, but if we combine two pumps, that reduces to a figure. If you do a detailed audit, so we'll come to know that and we'll try to avoid. So that we say here, by reducing leakage, somebody I mentioned. So then regular audit and implementation of energy saving measures. So whatever we have identified, it could be a replacement of a old pump. The pumps are you find 10 years to get old, exist their life. Then the motors are burned and revived number of times. So then there could be a variation in the water consumption pattern. If we are not feeding to the over tank and we are feeding directly to the consumer, that are few cities that is happening. So we may recommend a variable speed drive. Depending upon the requirement, we can control the feed of water to that section of city. So these are all about like you said, this water and energy. Any questions?
What kind of funding options are available for if the cities want to go for water efficient, the energy efficient measures? What are the options available?
So the best option and what we are following in Gujarat, basically under that municipal energy efficiency project, basically the ESCO model. It's a share selling model. What we are saying is we are inviting the ESCOs. They will come forward. They will identify the opportunities by doing a detailed IGA study, investment debt study. They will draw the baseline and they will find out the various possibilities. Could be number of possibilities. And vis-a-vis they will also look at the capex, the investment. So here in our model, the entire investment will be done by the ESCOs. And as I mentioned in my lecture, 20% is the minimum guaranteed saving what we are asking from them. That's the minimum. Then over and above, whatever the additional saving, so they will get an incentive towards that. How the model works? Whatever the savings, suppose the ESCO in the IGA studies for the pilot phase, they could identify 33% of savings. So out of 33% savings, 20% of the savings will be given to the ULPs, the cities, as an incentive.
And maintenance is done by who?
Maintenance will be done by the investor, means the ESCOs. They will replace, it could be a replacement, it could be a retrofit model. And whatever the modifications they do in that particular, it's not applicable to all the pumping stations. Suppose out of 120, they are doing some corrections in 80. So they will be maintaining that during the 1 day for that 80 pumps only. And the project here we have defined is 7 years. So during the 7 years, they will ensure that 30% savings are achieved, and there is a measurement and verification, I think what Ms. Vakil has mentioned, to ensure because they are supposed to prepare a monthly savings report and they could manipulate also.
Both pumping as well as lighting.
Like both are there. And
for this school, is it cheaper fund available or they have to borrow money from the
investors, from the FIs, financial institutions?
12.5%. And the 7 years is the fix?
Basically that we have fixed because this project was conceived way back.
Is this income they will get to savings is exempt from tax?
Actually the schools have demanded for it if they can get an exemption. So we are basically looking at various rules and regulations if it is
Will there
possible.
be some gap funding available?
No, it's not. Even the...
So entire risk lies with the investor?
Yes, both financial and technical. Both the risk. So it's very difficult. But now sir, fortunately, EESL, Energy Efficiency Services Limited, they have come forward, they have shown interest. Now they are doing the detailed IGA study in 5 cities for pumping. So one city, the Navsari, the exercise is over.
Is 100% to direct route FDA allowed?
100%
FDA to direct route.
100%.
FDA to direct route.
The direct route, so
No.
no.
Direct FDA.
No, FDA for investment. 100% investment.
So it's basically you should have a venture. You should have a venture here in with some. You should have a partner here in India.
No, obviously they. I'm talking about the funds.
Funds, I think 100% is not allowed.
No, but
Of course, I am not.
no foreign institution has come forward to do any energy efficiency investment in India.
Because we have not given attractive proposal.
We have not, but ESL, as you said, is coming forward to do that because ESL has got a lot of capital from some of the PSL.
Yeah, right now it is.
ASL, but what is the rate of interest they will invest?
See, what the ESL said will not, add a profit to it as a pilot one, but we will try our best to, maintain that break-even point. So whatever they are looking for, say 16% IRR, 16-18%, so that they will be in a comfortable position. Take it up for implementation.
But who ensures their efficiency?
The efficiency is ESL to,
Efficiency of what?
Their own efficiency.
Of ESL.
If they don't, they will be.
see that detailed calculation, you mean to say the financial calculations?
Yeah.
That is going to be evaluated by the technical committee. And over and above, you have, state government, they have their own finance team, so they are going to evaluate because you can't put any vague numbers and ask for.
SK, what about the French company that was coming and putting their money in SSNNL project? The French service provider who was all the way into almost 100% increases. This is the Sardar Sarovar Nagar.
Yeah.
But
But why US FDA, US Exim, end loan from JICA to JICA, Japanese loan, why they have not come forward?
Japs are investing in funds.
Citilum is Citilum France. They have shown interest and they will be participating in phase 2. Dalkia Energy Services, now Veolia Group, they are also shortlisted. Manuel is
Are
there.
there role models already? Some pilot projects successfully done?
Quite a lot of pilot projects have been done, but that has not given the impetus for ongoing projects.
But we had some live studies, Amarnath is doing that, and we are looking for funding.
We did that with Mr. Ram. It is the first instance of what
And our street lighting will ensure 60%, minimum 60% saving.
On LEDs.
Minimum, yes, 60% saving, guaranteed.
But
there are a lot of issues.
First is the
Sir, I guarantee 1 billion percent will have 60% saving in spite of all the issues that we have.
Major issue is the reliability, whether that LED should last for 5-6 years. Once it is done, I think there is no issue.
What remains problem is the driver. We have solutions for driver. So there is no problem.
But LEDs are, you mean to say, are they IP67 or 66?
it's 67, whatever you do. That's not the
problem.
That's not the LED, that's the fixture.
That's a fixture. Yeah. But driver life, I was told it is 3 years. Every 3-4 years, you have to replace it. No.
50,000 burning year.
That's the, the theoretical calculation.
Theoretical? No, theoretical is 100.
No. 1 lakh. 100,000.
But the other thing that we can do is also raise the poles from 9 to 12, increase the spacing from 25. This 30 lakhs you get at about, on a 9 meter pole you get at about 20 meters.
Take it on SCADA, do dimming,
lighting suppliers are available and especially 30 lakhs. Let's tell you, we have achieved not LEDs but sodium vapor fittings. We have done some design base in Baroda. So we could achieve this 30 lakhs, uniformity of 40% at a pole span of 40 meter.
40 meter.
Pole height? Pole height is 10 and a half.
So you can go to 12 with 150
12 will be very high.
12 with 150 LED. Or even 200. This is a 250 equivalent.
250, the equivalent LED rating will be 100 watt.
100, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Even at 100, I'm saying at 150 you can go to 40 meters.
Okay,
You see the lamp source is very very small. So the optics are phenomenal. Okay, as against sodium vapor or any other mercury vapor HMI lamps. The
But
lamps
with
like
LED,
that,
LED, the sprayed is the problem because you know if it is done, there are no issues.
not anymore.
All this can be done.
And the external optics is not a problem now.
It is very expensive. There won't be any issue. Yeah.
My quick question is that diverting, we talk about water recycling, water
Secondary treatment.
secondary treatment, etc. What is the cost per liter if there is a number like that? Because what we're saying is that
What is considered central and not right below the pole?
what it says, we keep saying that we will reduce our moving capacity because we are recycling 50%. There's a huge cost of recycling.
Absolutely.
So how do you offset that? What are the numbers broadly per liter?
1 kiloliter. I can do, but I think certainly comparable with your the regular the corporation supply, but it is far less. And there are few industrial houses that are ready to put that secondary whatever PPP. But only issues are
Pay
them the users. Basically, they are identifying, targeting the industries where this water can be used in cooling waters and gardening and other applications. So that's the way they are planning to do.
But you don't have a number of.
I think my colleague he did he worked out some numbers. I can pass on this, but that's a comparable, not that very expensive.
Because that's a very important.
Absolutely.
That's a cost that nobody talks about. There's this romance about recycling and tertiary treatment and secondary treatment and usability. But considering that the water resource per se is not expensive.
I think maybe at the end of the lecture I just try to connect him and I give the numbers.
Just for general knowledge.
Yeah, sure.
I'd like to have a sort of benchmark.
I have a small thing on that dimmer fact. You said 30 lumens. Because of the fast moving, 30 lux because of the fast moving traffic. And then let's dim it. Then the traffic also slows.
All of them are speaking.
There are four. I am told there are 4 more slides.
Okay, see, this dimming, even if you are roaming on that road or driving after 11, if it is dim, you really not differentiate that.
You won't feel that.
You won't feel it. It is. No,
you will not.
That's fine.
It's not for Bangalore, it's not for Mumbai, it's not for Delhi.
That's why I said it's not applicable here because you have to export that very fast. Otherwise, that carry heavy huge traffic and fast traffic.
And another thing we don't take into consideration is the ambient light from the city that actually impacts this. You can almost have 5%, which is really light pollution that we are talking about. That's another issue.
Not organized there.
No, I don't think so.
नहीं वो तो